Hi, I'm Sarah Grace. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Let's Talk. Today I'm sitting down with my close friend Chandra and we're talking all about relational conflict. The truth is we're not going to get along with everybody all the time, and as we get closer with people, sometimes it's harder to see the best in them. And so today we're talking all about how do you handle when you come up with things in friendships, in relationships that just feels so wrong, or how do you have those conversations where you have to confront those issues? We're going to dive into that today. We're going to tell on ourselves a little bit, so I hope you enjoy this episode. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Chandra. You're one of my closest friends, and so I'm super glad to have you here.
You say that about everybody.
I do say close friends a lot. I feel like it's wrong to call someone your best friend. Like, it's just, you're singling someone out, calling them your best friend.
You can single me out.
So, you know what I mean? So I just use the term close friends usually.
Right.
Like, if we're more than just like acquaintance friends, it's close friends.
Yeah.
But I know you really well, but none of the viewers do. So tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're at in life right now. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm Chandra. I'm your close friend.
I already said that, yeah.
Yep. So I currently am working at 𝗵𝗄𝗃 Bible College. I'm the worship director over the worship ministry, also over the School of Worship. I just got married a little over a year ago. So I've been married since June of
the year before right now.
Something.
Yeah.
I'm really great with dates, and then also we have a baby on the way. So
exciting.
Yeah, just kind of at that stage of life.
Yeah, that's super cool. We've talked a lot about like just different seasons. It's like, how do you learn to be friends in totally different seasons? And for me right now, like, I'm not married, I don't have kids, and so it's actually been super fun for me to get to walk with you on this journey. I got to be the maid of honor in your wedding. Super fun. And then, you know, I'm going to be the best auntie to your little baby. So I'm just super excited for the season of life.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I've said this before, but I think, like, when you only have friends who are in your same season of life, it can be a lot less sharpening for you than, like, having friends who are doing other things and who are a few steps ahead of you in their season of life. And so I love that about our friendship, to be able to see you walk through this season. Yeah.
Thanks.
So we're going to talk about something today that we're both super familiar with, which is relational conflict. And it's so funny. Like, I was like, we don't even probably need to sit down and make tons of notes on this episode because we both have a lot of experience specifically with each other in this area. And what happens is when you get close enough to people and you have relationship long enough, you're going to have conflict with them. And it's really easy to have. So let's talk about our story a little bit, because I think some of the stuff we walked through.
I do think I'll say this before you start. I think the one thing I learned about through our friendship, though, is you always come up to a point with friends where you face the opportunity to have conflict, whether healthy or unhealthy. And I think all throughout my life, I just avoided it.
Yeah.
Which I tried to do with you, which we'll talk about a little bit. And just trying to avoid that conflict altogether, which would result in, unfortunately, loss of friendships and for ridiculous reasons that don't have to happen. And so I think a lot of people, we get to those points, and that's why new relationships are so fun, whether it's a friendship or a dating relationship that people are in. It's so fun at the beginning because nothing's wrong with the person because you don't know them till you learn what's wrong with them and really what's wrong with you, and that comes to the surface.
Yeah.
So I think, like you said, we always come to that point, but I think in my life, it took years and years of going around that same mountain before I ever got to the point to actually confront and have resolution within that conflict.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's super easy to get to a place where it's like, okay, this isn't fun anymore. And then you just sort of bow out of relationships, which is, I think, a lot of what you experienced. And then for me, I think I would just get really silent and in conflict type situations. Well, like, I'm not going to say anything because I'll just have to get over it. You know what I mean? Or like, I'm being a baby if I bring it up, or things like that. And so for me, I would just kind of the same thing, just sort of distance myself a little bit, put up a guard, like keep myself from, because it really is like control. You start to kind of control the situation when you have conflict. And I think for me, I would feel like I control by not letting you have so much of me, my time, or so much information, or I'm not really going to tell you what's going on. And I think that's a really easy place to get. So
I think people go into that ditch or completely into the other and get manipulative and weird and controlling about relationship, and they don't want to lose relationship because there is something, you know, conflicting going on that we need to talk through, but we don't know how.
Yeah.
And so I've just seen it go both ways, and I've probably acted in both ways and experienced both in my life. But yeah, I think friendship with you was very stretching for me.
Yeah.
Very preparing for me for different seasons of my life, like where I'm at now. Because once you say I do, you don't get to just leave relationship.
Forget it. There's conflict. I'm out. Exactly.
And so it was very stretching for me and very growing. And I use so many examples of like what you were saying, iron sharpens iron. And we, you know, it's stretching and it's growth and it's never fun. Like I still don't enjoy conflict.
Yeah.
And I think there's a few
It'd
people
be weird
who are total weirdos who like conflict and they like go looking for it.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's healthy. But some people like conflict or they enjoy that confrontational meeting to just get to the bottom of things. I still don't love it.
No.
Even though
it's like,
and I'm probably not even that great at it still.
I still
like
feel
learning.
a little gross every time, like, ugh, like when you have to have that conversation. But either way, if like what you said, if you're becoming overbearing and trying to control the other person, or you're backing away and distancing yourself and not talking about it, both of those things are you trying to control the situation, when in reality, what needs to happen is there needs to be conversation where you can come to some sort of resolution, you know, like you need to come to that place. And it's funny because, and we've worked through so much of this, and it's like funny and fun to talk about now, but even from the very, like, from the start of our friendship, we're super different.
Yeah.
Our personalities are super different. And I joke that I prepared you for marriage because your husband has similar character qualities as I do.
He's so similar to you. It was like when we went out for coffee or lunch, whatever we did, the first time we hung out, I was like, this girl's great. We're going to be like best friends. I know it. That was a great time.
And then I literally was in my head being like, yeah, probably we won't really hang out again. And it's so funny because just the way that we perceived that even was so different.
Yeah.
But you were right. And we became really close friends. Yeah. And then you were kind of in a transition season and moved in with me, and we were roommates for a while.
Yeah, you took me in off the streets.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And it's great because now you have this beautiful house, and I feel like, you know, if I ever needed anything, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But
you have a roommate.
Exactly. But what happened is, like, again, we start off friendship. I'm like, well, I don't know. We ended up becoming super close friends and spending tons of time together. And so I thought this will be so fun. Like, let's be roommates for a while. And that's, you know, roommates.
Do you know, people say this, and it's true to an extent, where they say never become roommates with your best friend because it'll ruin your friendship.
Yeah.
And it totally has the ability to, because it's just like how marriages, people say, even all through pre-marriage counseling, they're like, you don't really know a person until you live with them.
Yeah.
And you're like, yes, I know everything about them. I spend so many hours a day with them. And it's true, even on my honeymoon, like I just went and got whatever kind of food just that I eat.
Right.
Just carrots and, you know, deli meat and like, you know, cheese to just snack on. And my husband, like the second or third day we're married, he goes, I am withering away. I hate cold meat. I hate eating like this. I need a real meal.
I don't want a charcuterie board. That's girl food.
And I had no idea, because when we would hang out, he'd eat like that. Then he'd go home to his home and eat a real meal before he went to bed or whatever.
Right.
So it's like, even though you spend so much time together, if you're, you know, have a good friend and you're spending the night at their house, you don't really know until you live together, because there's just things after a while you just can't hide anymore.
Right, when you're with each other. And in the times of the day too, it's like your home is the place where you go to decompress, you relax, and sometimes that's really where your flesh comes out. And it's true, like if you're not, and I remember us talking about this even before we moved in together, like, yeah, like, you know, becoming a roommate's where your friendship goes to die. Like
we knew it. I'd had friends who I became roommates with, and it was so unfortunate the way that, you know, our friendship ended after living together and just not knowing how to resolve conflict properly.
Right. And I remember thinking like, that won't happen with me. Like, this is going to be fun. Like, we're going to have a great time. So you move in, and it starts out super fun.
So fun.
Mean, we're like having coffee in each other's rooms every morning, like, and then there'd be mornings you'd have to get up super early, so then you would bring me coffee or vice versa. And it's like super cute and fun, just like what you would want it to be. And then over time,
I just don't even know what.
I couldn't even tell you where it started.
What happened.
There's little things that we would do differently. A super funny example of this is like, I would get so bothered, like if the shower curtain was like left open after shower, because I'm thinking it's getting mildewy, but I don't care about my towel. And so I'm like, why are you hanging your towel on everything?
There was no towel rack anywhere in this bathroom.
It was a huge bathroom too. There was
not one towel rack, or there was something in front of it, so you couldn't hang anything on it. And there's like little hooks on the door, but when you hook your towel up, it crumples together and it's wet and it stays wet. So the next day that you go to use it, it's still damp, and that's gross feeling. I like want it completely dry.
Yeah.
So like open a cabinet door and hang my towel over to flatten it out to just let it dry.
And then I'd be like, why are your towels all over the cabinet?
Stop doing this. Just hang it up on the hook. And I'm like, because it needs to be dry. That's gross. Why are you hanging your wet towel on a hook to stay damp and gross? And then you would get frustrated because I'd leave the shower curtain open in my head. I don't even know if all the other places I lived had doors, so I wasn't even aware of the shower curtain
like
being a curtain.
To close it. Yeah. So little things like that I remember, and I think that that's pretty normal. And I remember even having conversations specifically about the towel shower curtain thing. But what I remember happening is over time, where it used to be like we would come home and want to spend time together, we both sort of started avoiding going home, coming later. We would see each other and just sort of pass and go to our own rooms.
I remember I'd wake up early because I was like, this girl, whatever's wrong with her, she does not want to be around me. So I'm just going to get up early. Like before I know she gets up, I'll, you know, use the bathroom, do all the things I need to do in there, get ready and leave. So I started doing that because I thought like you were irritated with me. So I'm like, I'm just gonna get out of here and run, because that's what we're tempted to do in conflict, or things that you don't even understand come to the surface. So I'm just gonna get out of here. I'm gonna run and avoid.
Right. And
so I started doing that in the mornings.
Thinking like, I'm gonna run from this opportunity to resolve something and get close. It's
not
like
at all.
You just subconsciously, it's what you always done. And it just, you know.
And it feels better than being in an uncomfortable situation.
Exactly.
So I'm just going to do this and leave. And so I was doing that in the mornings. And then I think, I don't know if you thought that was like, and then I just thought you didn't want me around.
I think really probably a lot of where it started was I actually am more introverted. So then we spend all this time together, and we're like morning, noon, and night together, like any time that would be alone time for me. We worked
together,
right?
We did like a lot of our friend groups were the same.
Exactly.
We hung out,
And then we're roommates, so it's like those times I would be by myself and kind of regrouping and, you know, spending time alone so I can just exist around other people and still be a great person. It's like I all of a sudden was spending all of my time with you. And then I think what happened is, because I didn't recognize that, then I started to kind of pull away because I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to chill out. And then I think you took it as I didn't want you around, but I didn't, like we didn't know how to have a simple conversation.
So then the whole thing happened though.
Yeah.
And I think, what was it, a month or two that we were just like avoiding each other.
Yeah.
We wouldn't even talk.
Yeah. It was just super awkward. And it wasn't like, okay, like we're looking at each other and refusing to say stuff, but it's like just awkward, like really weird stuff. Like, and then what happens is, because you're not communicating, things actually get worse because there's lack of communication.
And there's room for assumption.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm in the shower when you wanted to be in the shower, but you didn't tell me you wanted to be in the shower, but I knew that was the time you typically shower. Like little things like that. And you start to assume things about people.
It gives room, so much room. Avoiding the communication gives so much room for the enemy to come in and lie.
Yeah.
And it's like, And I've experienced that in marriage now too. Again, knowing and learning and walking through this process with you. That was the first time in my life, and I know we'll get to it, of reaching resolution within that awkward conflict. But it's constant communication, because where we don't communicate, that's 90% of the time probably what's happening is both have fault. Like some relational advice I got from somebody was simply whenever there's conflict and whenever there's an issue, your job is to come in and say, and realize you're actually part of it, and come in and say, where's my part? Where did I fall short in this misunderstanding here?
Yeah, it's so good. And so then what happened is we started avoiding each other. And like it really got to the point of...
It was affecting
other things.
Yeah,
and we worked at the same church. And so then it wasn't just like this awkward roommate situation that was petty. It was like, you guys are not in unity. And we literally sat down, even with our pastors, like let's talk through some of this stuff. And yeah, like when it actually came down to it, we realized there was areas we were both at fault, but a lot of it was just huge misunderstandings. I thought you didn't want me around. You thought I didn't want you around.
I think simply, that's what it simply came down to.
Yeah, which is insane that it's like we spent...
But that's how the enemy works.
A good couple of months. Yeah, a good couple of months. And it's like through, and I think that the enemy always works through either distraction or deception. And it can just be people's little flaws, or the little ways that we do things that we don't agree with can just be a huge distraction. And then what happens is we think we're so right, or that's weird. And if we don't talk about it, it bottles up and it always becomes more. I'm thinking of one other time that so there was like little things that were happening that I was being bothered by. And I thought, like my process was like, okay, if I'm bothered by something, then I need to go to the Lord and he needs to help me to be more selfless. And then I need to come back to that situation and just be selfless. And the truth is like, that is part of it. You need to learn to prefer other people before you. But that's not all of like you, because what happens
that's
is
also still an easy way out.
You're
still avoiding conflict,
because
saying,
you're
I'm
like,
going to the Lord instead.
I'm going to deal with it myself. And then what ends up happening is you're like, okay, so I'm going to deal with this myself. And then if it's not actually dealt with, then it's just adding and adding and adding on top of every time somebody does that same thing that bothers you.
If you're feeling disrespected, if you're feeling dishonored, or somebody's not taking into account your feelings or how, that you are a person here and you have an opinion. And that was one of the issues, was like, you would always say, I don't care, like whatever.
Right, like I just don't care.
But I'm very opinionated. So I'm like, awesome. Then this is what I want to eat tonight, or this is what I want to watch as a movie, or this is what I want to do, or this is where I want to go. And so for me, it was like,
she's take charge. And it's like, even though I don't care about those things, I care about my opinion being asked. You know what I mean?
And being heard.
Yeah.
And again, that I think it was just a learning thing for me.
Yeah.
Because it is being intentional about other people and just being aware of other people.
Right.
Even if they're saying things, I don't really care, like whatever, or you're just really quiet and not assertive. That's super important to still include people. I mean, it's a very Western thing that we just talk over one another constantly.
Right.
People talk over each other and we interrupt, and the most assertive person and the loudest person wins.
Yeah.
So Americans are known wherever we go in the world for being loud and obnoxious. And it's just like, how do we actually prefer someone else? How do we actually want to listen and hear what they think and what they feel? And that was a huge learning thing for me.
And it has to be real in your heart, because you can't just say, I don't care. Or, you know what, you choose, I'm not bothered. And it's like, if it actually is in your heart, that's never going to work. And for me, I think I was in like a place of pride of being like, I like that I'm the more easygoing one, or like, I like that I don't care about certain things. And it's like, but I actually did care, but I wanted to be perceived a different way. And so
like, you prefer others.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, it's really just a total pride thing to not be able to have conversations about it. And so because I didn't go to you and be like, listen, I'm sorry, actually I do care about some of these things, so would you mind just asking me? Like, you know what I mean? That could have been a 5-minute conversation, but then what happened is we're sitting at a restaurant And the waitress like comes up, and Chandra, we're gonna get an appetizer together.
We'd already talked about it for a while.
Yeah, and it's like I didn't really like put my opinion out there, and so Chandra just orders the food. It's what you do when the waitress comes up, like you order the food. And I
think
remember
there's like two options. It's like there's this or this.
Yeah, and so
like nobody really said anything.
Right, she just orders the food, and I'm like, well, thanks for asking me what I want, and then it was just crickets.
Like, that's not what I want.
Yeah,
or something.
Exactly. And I was like, thanks, so like really sarcastic, like thanks for asking, like thanks for considering what I wanted in that situation. And what that was, it had nothing to do with the appetizer. It was a buildup of those times, and then I exploded. Right. And even if up until that point you would have been the only one in the wrong, which wasn't the case, but even if it was, then I would have been in the wrong for exploding. And so it's like you can't actually win if you're not willing to have those conversations.
And it's just communication.
Yeah.
Like people are like, what is conflict resolution? Well, how do you, and it takes, it takes two humble people, but really it takes somebody being willing to take the first step usually. Yeah. Like if two people really care about each other in a relationship, unless somebody is just really narcissistic and unhealthy and there's something weird going on, and that's totally happens at times. But in all reality, if two people love each other and are trying to make a relationship healthy and care for one another and want to have a healthy relationship, whether that be good friends or roommates or a marriage or you're dating or whatever that looks like, if you really care about the person, to come into a relationship, to come to the table and bring things that are real, that are happening, and not accusing. And I think both of us knew enough to know not to come into a meeting and just start accusing and bashing each other.
You always do this and you always
do that. But it really
right?
is as simple as just communication.
Yeah.
Hey, this has been going on, and the reason I've been avoiding you is because I feel like you don't want me around.
Yeah.
It's like, and I think people overcomplicate conflict resolution because we see it done so wrong. I think so often, the movies portray like these big dramatic blowout fights and everybody yells and slams the door or whatever. Maybe we saw it modeled one way in our families or something.
Yeah.
But it really is communicating and really coming to the table to listen to the other person and realizing I have fault in this. If you just stay humble, I just don't think you can go wrong. If you keep your heart humble and realize I have things to apologize for. Yeah. Even if you don't. Humble yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when you go into those situations, a lot of times it's like the other person's doing something that's bothering you. So you could come in and be like, you're doing this and I don't like it. It's not right. It's like, but if you're really humble, what you need to do is talk about how that's making you feel. And that might make you look bad. It might make you look like you're too emotional or too sensitive. And it's like, but be humble enough to go into a situation and say, when this is happening, this is how it's making me feel. Because ultimately, it's not your job to control the other person's actions. It's your job to control your actions and your feelings. But this is your friend, this is your family. Like invite the person into that and say, I need you to help me. When you do this, it makes me feel like this. And I'm not saying like, say what you're not saying. I'm not saying that this is your intention. But here's what it's doing to me, and I just need help as I learn to grow and mature past this. Like, I need you to help me out here. And inviting them in that way instead of coming in a way like, this is how it has to be.
Which so often, I think it simply is pride. Pride and like our ego, per se, will keep us so much, it can keep us bound because our flesh always wants to be in the right.
We don't want to look bad.
We never want to be wrong. And so, the more, I do believe, apart from conflict resolution, which is like doesn't get easier, no matter, you could think it, like I can look back at these conversations and be like, wow, that was so easy. But now it's like I can think of a couple of conversations I probably need to have at some point with some people in my life, but just for understanding. Yeah. And it's like, I don't want to. Yeah. But I do think, even though conflict resolution doesn't get easier over time, and it might for some people, it hasn't for me necessarily. Yeah. You become more aware of it. You do become more aware of it over time. And I feel like humbling yourself gets easier and easier every time you do it, to where it's like something I love to do. I worked with one of my teams this morning, and I came in with a bad attitude because I was tired and cranky. And there's no excuse for it, but I just came in with kind of a bad attitude, so I was a little short with my team. And the thing I said, like before we even started this set, the team came around, and I was like, you guys, I just apologize for my attitude this morning. That's not okay. It's not okay for me to come in having a poor attitude.
Yeah.
No matter how tired or cranky or pregnant I am, like, it doesn't matter, you know, and I appreciate all of you guys, all that you do. They're putting in just as much work as I am. And humility, actually, I believe the more you do it, the easier it does get. And it's a fun way to live. Like, it's fun to live. Like, that's freedom to not be living in pride. It actually is,
because you're realizing, like, this is not who I am, and I acted outside of who I am, and it's empowering to be who you are. And I think when you choose humility, then it's easier for other people. So if you go into a conversation of this nature and you are super humble, you put your feelings on display, remove your pride, and talk about the areas that you are struggling and that you're wrong, it makes those conversations easier. Because if you come in with guns blazing and you're wrong, this and that, you will shut them down.
Defensive, you know, guards come up immediately.
Every time. And I think another thing that's important to remember is, like, when your friend's coming to you to open up, or your spouse or whoever, it's like they're opening up this space of, like, I need to talk about something that's going on. Your flesh will every time want to be like, what? Well, you did this, you did that, and make it about them. And it's like, you're realizing you've done something wrong, so then you want to deflect and bring up all the things that they've done wrong. Resist the urge to do it.
I heard somebody say it like this. It's like they have this precious little gem of a heart that could be shattered, and they literally just open it up to you, like, my heart was hurt, or, you know, this happened. And it's so tempting to be like, yeah, it did, and just crush it, you know? And it's just like, no, like, we have to be intentional when people are vulnerable, because that'll truly break trust. And I've seen friendships end over that as well. Like, no, you're just not being understanding. And when people come in a vulnerable place, like, I've done that where people have broken trust with me, and I'm like, I'm not opening my heart to you again. Or I can't trust you. And I think that's important maybe to communicate, if that's a relationship the Lord has placed in your life. Not to just shut down and, again, run, but trust is earned over time. And we don't just, you know, and the more and more we can have healthy conversation, when we talk about conflict resolution, just having healthy conversation, wanting to listen to the other person, wanting to stay humble yourself, and be quick to forgive, quick to apologize. We really do continue to build more and more trust. And there's like, in my heart, there's nothing I couldn't go to you with. You know, if there was an issue, or if there's something that hurt me, or something that I'm confused about, conversation I need to have. Because there's been so much relational trust built over time because of those conversations.
Those conversations really do build that trust. This is so good. We could keep going forever. We're over time. But thank you so much for being here, for being vulnerable, sharing your flaws and mine, and getting it all out there. But thanks for being on. I'm sure we'll have you on another episode. But thanks for sharing.
Absolutely.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. We certainly had a fun time doing this and telling all of our stories and our experiences. One of the things about conflict is that you need help. You need guidance to walk through those things. You need to know how to approach people and how they're going to best respond to you. And so one of the ways that you can do that is by knowing how to hear God's voice. So I want to give away to you a little booklet called The 4 Keys to Hearing God's Voice. If you go to letstalkgtn.com, you can get this book totally for free. I want you to take advantage of it, read it. It's a super simple and easy read, and I really think it's going to bless you and help all of your relationships, knowing how to hear God's voice, being familiar with His voice. I know it's going to be an awesome tool for you. So go get that, and I'll see you on the next episode of Let's Talk.